I always say to people, I feel like their questions are going to take us everywhere we need to go. So how can we help you this morning?
Where am I? Okay, hi. Yeah, my husband's been having...
We were just trying to find some basic information. We tried to get into the 9 o'clock last night, but it just kept...
I don't think we used the right code, sorry. Yeah, we've got it figured out now.
Okay, well, we'll make sure you get the right number.
Anyway.
I wanted to hear the story about wounds, how it expedites the healing of wounds.
Okay, well, Karen, can you do me a favor while I'm chatting? And Leah, I'm going to use you here. Karen, can you in the chat put your cell phone number, and I'm going to have Leah text you a picture of my own personal wound healing so you can send it to Chris and her husband. So if you can drop your cell phone number in the chat, Leah will text that to you while I'm yakking. So Chris, I'm going to share with you my own personal testimony with that because it's pretty fantastic. I discovered the patches about 2 weeks prior to me getting a total hip replacement on my right side. And I was only using, at the time, what I had was just a few X39s. I didn't even have a whole 2 weeks worth because my patches hadn't gotten here. So I went into surgery, and that day I got home from surgery, my patches had arrived, and I immediately started using the X39, the Eon, the glutathione, and the carnosine.
So there's more than one?
There's more than one patch. The X39 is samples of what you have coming in the mail, which is our stem cell activation patch. However, we do have some supporting patches that I chose to use, okay? However, that stem cell activation patch was probably the main source of the healing. So with that said, I had 25 staples in my hip. And about 2 weeks after I got home, the nurses came and they removed my staples. And then about a week and a half later, I was just telling the story this morning, Leah and I were to a girl. I had to go to the doctor's for a follow-up from my surgery. And so I happened to meet with my surgeon's head PA, who was in the operating room with us when I had my surgery done. And so we chatted for a bit, and then of course he wanted to see the wound or the incision. And so, you know, he was sitting there just kind of staring at my hip to the point that I became very uncomfortable because I thought there was a problem because he was just staring and he wasn't saying anything. And I finally was like, James, you know, what is, you know, the problem here? And he goes, well, there's not a problem. He goes, you know, Laura, you just got your staples out. And your skin, your wound, your incision, if you will, is flat. They're never just flat that soon. And he goes, I can see within the incision where it's starting to fade already. And he goes, you're 2 weeks out. And he said, but the thing that's really caught my attention is, you know, 99.9% of the people are bruised from the hip to the ankle. And they're black and blue. Okay. I was in the room with him when he was putting the prosthetic in, and not to be blunt, but he beat the hell out of you in there. Like, you should be black and blue from your hip to your ankle, and there's not one bruise on your body. And so I really attribute that to my patching a little bit that I was doing prior, but my patching 2 weeks before I got in there.
Did you use the patch every day?
Did they send you my picture? Have you seen my picture?
No, but did you use the patch every day?
Every day. I have worn these patches every single day for 8 months.
Okay.
My story does go a little deeper than just my hip surgery. When I had the ability, now to give you a little background on the patch, Dr. Stacy, who's not on with us this morning, but she and I had the great fortune to go see and listen to David Schmidt, the inventor and scientist behind this product, the X39 stem cell activation patch. And Stacy is all about stem cells. She's done stem cell research for the last 20 years for her daughter, which I will let you hear that story from her because it's phenomenal. And I was really honestly there. I was along for the ride. However, when David spoke of the stem cell activation patch and then went into some of those supporting patches, that's when I got extremely interested, which was he started making reference to things like glutathione and carnosine. These are two compounds that our body makes, but as we age, there is a large deficit of production in our bodies of these things. So back in 2017, I found out that I had stage 3 breast cancer. And because of my background in health and wellness, I chose to heal myself all through nutrition, IV vitamin therapy, and supplementation. And glutathione and carnosine were two of probably the largest supplementations that I was doing, whether it was through IV or whether my wellness doctors were making specific compounds for me. And so when I discovered through my knowledge with LifeWave and David Schmidt that when I was receiving that glutathione through my IV vitamin therapy, to make it story short here, I was only getting about 23% of what they were administering, and it was only staying in my body for like 7 minutes. Now, glutathione is a massive antioxidant, detoxification, age reversal compound that our body naturally makes. But when David started speaking of his glutathione patch, and I learned that when I placed that patch beneath my belly button, that I was going to get 300% and it was going to stay in my body for 24 hours because my body was making its own, then that was a no-brainer for me. So for me now, on top of my amazing wound healing, I have incredible peace of mind. Like, I don't have that little guy up on my shoulder going, what if? Like, that doesn't exist for me anymore because of the stem cell activation patch, because of the glutathione that I use here and the carnosine. So I don't know how much Karen has shared with you, but to give you a little background on how the company got started, David Schmidt, about 18 years ago, was doing some work with the Defense Department. And at that time, they came to him and said that they would love for him to devise something for their Navy SEALs. They needed something other than amphetamines and everything else they were having to take to keep their energy up, keep them awake, and basically keep them alive. The goal was to keep their stamina up, keep their cognitive mind, the cognitive part of their brain open and clear, and basically keep them awake and alive. So with that, David Schmidt did come up with a patch called the Energy Enhancer. And so this is how the company got started. And through that process of creating the Energy Enhancer and beyond, he started discovering other ways to put other patches together that the body could utilize to help heal itself. Okay. And that's where the X39, the stem cell activation patch, was born. David was in R&D for 10 years. and about $4.5 million of his own money, and 39 tries, hence X39, the name of the stem cell activation patch, before he could get, if you will, the exact recipe of the organic amino acids, salts, and sugars that has created a crystal lattice. And you'll see this when you get your patches in the mail and you take the backing off, you're getting ready to place it on your skin. You'll see a little round circle there. But please remember that these patches are non-transdermal. There is nothing going into your body. Okay, so there's no contradiction to anything that you might be taking, but there's nothing going through. And I think the best way for me to describe how it works is, we've all heard it for years. We go out in the sun hits our skin, and it tells our body to make its own vitamin D. That's where the vitamin D source comes from. It comes from within, okay? But just like the sun, our bodies are low level infrared light. You know, like our body temperature is what, 98.6? But if you were to see us through night vision goggles at night, we would all light up red because we're emitting a low level light. So when we take that patch and we place it on the skin, it kicks that light frequency back to our bodies that it's creating, and it tells our body to start activating its own GHK copper peptide, which is a massive relation to healing pancreatic cancer, breast cancer, and there's several others. Karen can send you some information on that. It's brilliant. But as our GHK copper peptides get elevated, it instructs our body to activate our own personal stem cells. And so that is where our body and those stem cells will start marching to the areas that it deems appropriate at that moment, that needs to be attended to, if you will. Does that make sense, Chris?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so, you know, sometimes we might want it to go to the back pain that we've been living with for 7 years and we're just sick of. But as those stem cells start marching and activating, our bodies might say, hey, listen, we need you over here before you go to the back pain because this is more important. You know, it might pick up, it needs to heal itself in some areas. It could be a muscle tissue. It could be brain tissue. It could be lung tissue. It could be whatever, you know, and we don't feel all those things going on. So I tell people as they get started with the patches to be patient. Some of the things that we're dealing with didn't happen overnight. So there's certainly, the body doesn't have the tools to heal it overnight. It's going to take a while. And I think with the society that we live in of instant gratification, popping a pill that doesn't heal anything, it masks everything. Now we're giving the body the opportunity to actually heal itself versus mask a problem to just get through. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yeah, so it can actually heal internal problems that you've got.
Exactly.
Also.
Exactly. And we might not know what that is. And it doesn't have to be a horrific thing. Like I tell people, you know, I certainly didn't know I had cancer until I went to the doctors and they said, hey, guess what? You know what I mean? So, you know, none of us can really feel those things going on. I'm not saying it's going to be something like that, but it could be, you know, anything. I mean, we all don't put great things in our bodies all the time. So, for example, if you think about your liver, our liver probably takes the most abuse out of any organ that we have because it's a detoxification organ. So you might start activating your stem cells, and for example, your liver needs a little help. It needs a little rejuvenation. So the stem cells are going to march to that area, which in return is going to give you a better quality of life because your liver is going to act at 100% versus maybe the 80% it's taken care of. You know what I'm saying? The body is pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.